So, if you guys have been following me for a while now, you'll know that some of my favorite anime besides Dragon Ball are Initial D and Rurouni Kenshin. Initial D has a ton of great model kits and scale replicas, and we don't even have to talk about Dragon Ball, but I've always wanted a 6-inch, fully articulated Rurouni Kenshin figure. Sure, we got a couple of third-party options and an official Revoltech release more than a decade ago, but for the Kenshin fan in me, they never really cut it. I don't know, Daisin Model always looked like a custom at best to me, like a cosplaying action figure, and the Revoltech was decent for its time, but it just never held up. So in 2024, along comes BUZZMOD, and Animated Heroes was the one who pointed me in their direction. So if it wasn't for him, I probably would have never knew this existed. I'm completely new to BUZZMOD, this will be my very first experience, so honestly, I'm not really sure what to expect. Let's just hope it doesn't disappoint, because this and the upcoming Figuarts rendition are two of my most highly anticipated figures of this year. So, I have Sobakasu by Judy and Mary playing constantly in my head right now while I have this guy in hand, and I know this is Kenshin from the most recent anime remake, which makes sense since this new series is probably why we're getting any Rurouni Kenshin merchandise at all. But aesthetically, it could work as both the 2023 remake or the 1996 original Kenshin. The art styles between the two anime are different, but when it comes down to a 3-dimensional 1/12 scale action figure, there really isn't too much of a difference here. I think BUZZMOD has captured the look of Kenshin really well here, from his short and slender stature to his beautifully sculpted iconic pink kimono, which blends into his cloth goods hakama trousers. BUZZMOD is known for integrating cloth materials into their figures, like their Kimetsu no Yaiba line, and whether you like it or not, I think it's done really well here. I usually prefer cloth goods when there's a need for it, but I'm also wary of elements that might take away from the figure as a whole. Stitching is probably the biggest one for me. You either do it small enough where it fits in the scale, or hide it completely. And here, all the stitching is on the underside of Kenshin's hakama pants. Look, he's even wearing red tights underneath there. The folds and creases are pre-pressed and look really good with the colored plastic of the upper half, especially when you have Kenshin in more neutral poses. The upper half of his obi belt is plastic. For paint, we have a nice subtle shade of dark red, almost black, to give you a little bit more dimension from his kimono, and all the details like his waraji sandals are painted nicely too. I also love the head sculpts and faces Kenshin comes with. There's enough shagginess and volume in his hair that perfectly recreates the art style from the anime and manga, and the expressions are beautifully translated from screen to 3D plastic form. We get 4 expressions with Kenshin, from his bright-eyed, innocent look we've all come to know and love, to his more stoic, deadly glare. It's a stark contrast between the two, but that's essentially Kenshin's character, and BUZZMOD have done a top-notch job here. We also have a shouting, more angry face for all your in-battle poses, as well as his iconic Oro face. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this one. Each faceplate is exquisitely printed with his infamous cross-shaped scar on each one. So this really is a beautiful looking figure, but it's the engineering where most of the problems lie for me. First, those shoulder joints, and whilst they do the job relatively well, they aren't the most flattering either. These remind me of the older Revoltech joints, which Revoltech themselves have kind of moved away from in more recent years. It kind of feels like a step back and just breaks up the otherwise beautiful aesthetics. The elbow joints aren't as bad, but I do wish they could have integrated them a little bit better to make it less jointy, I guess. Next, BUZZMOD uses similar wrist pegs to Mafex. Easy to swap out your hands, but also easy to fall off during posing. So far, Figuarts, in my opinion, have the best wrist system so far out of your import companies, and I really wish the other companies would follow suit as well, or at least make them a little bit longer so the hands don't keep falling off, and you'll see that a lot in this review. Lastly, while I love the cloth goods hakama pants, and it was one of the things that drew me to this figure in the beginning, functionally, it really only looks good in your more neutral poses. Once you try to get it in more dynamic, wide leg stances, because of the scale of the figure and because material doesn't really drape at that size, it just looks like a big bunch of poofy grey material. Don't get me wrong, BUZZMOD did a fantastic job making it look as good as possible, but I think this is just the unavoidable nature of trying to make cloth goods look good in dynamic poses in this scale. Figuarts, on the other hand, have chosen to go the full plastic route, and while it looks really blocky and totally destroys the silhouette of the figure, articulation-wise, that might be the way to go. In terms of quality control, the only things you really want to look out for are the loose connection from hands to wrist and maybe getting your grey pants stained with your oily, grubby hands, so make sure you wash them every time you handle this figure. Other than that, it's holding up great. Every other joint on the figure is nice and tight, and paintwork is looking good so far. Alright, so let's take a look at Kenshin's articulation, and the first kind of side note that I want to mention is that Kenshin is a little bit top heavy compared to his kind of spindly, skinny legs. There is a lot of plastic in comparison to support due to those, huge sleeves. There is a bit of plastic there, so he does kind of want to topple over from time to time, especially when he's in a vanilla pose. And something that I've noticed that helps a lot is I kind of angle the toe hinge a little bit, and that kind of prevents him from one of falling forward. So first up, let's have a look at his head articulation. So right here with his ponytail, it does swivel around, and there is a bit of a hinge there, so you can move slightly up and down. Not the best, but there is a bit of movement. So let's just get that out of the way for the moment. And Kenshin doesn't look up all too much, unfortunately, but he does look down quite a bit, and that's because of the collar there on his kimono. It does kind of hinder the articulation going up. You get side to side rotation and some left and right tilt as well. So these shoulders here, he doesn't have any butterfly joints, and these shoulders are very reminiscent of your Revoltech joints. It's like a double ball, a double hinge that can look a little bit ugly at certain angles, but you can hide them. And he does get pretty good range going up, and you do get 360 there at the shoulder as well. The bicep swivel, or the swivel there at the shoulder, is at the shoulder, so you get that there, and there is a slight swivel there at the elbow as well. Actually, you can go pretty much all out. But it does look a little bit ugly, as you can see here. And because these are sculpted, this is sculpted material, you're gonna have that breakage there in the elbow. It is a single joint, so you don't get the best range. That's as far as you can go. And then, like I said, you do get that gap here, but I guess it is kind of unavoidable. It's kind of similar to the SH Figuarts Geto Suguru from Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Sculpt is great, but because it is like flowy cloth, sculpted, it tends to kind of break the illusion when you bend it in certain areas. There is a separate joint here, let me try to show you inside, that goes into the actual sleeve itself. So there is kind of like a ball joint. His wrist there is attached via a ball joint, so you do get some range there. And the hands are on a swivel and hinge as well. Again, I do wish that these pegs were a little bit longer, because they do tend to pop out a lot easier than I would have liked it. So the sword does slip into his obi over here, and you do get a bit of leeway. I like it to be on more of a slant than kind of facing up, but You do get a little bit of movement there. For his ab articulation, there isn't too much crunch going forward, unfortunately. This is something that I wish Kenshin, that BuzzMod could have improved on, because you can't get him into, you know, any crazy poses, but there is some movement. A lot better going back. There is a bit of gappage there. You can see like a gap there in the middle, in his lower torso. Swivels at the waist. And the obi here is tightly secured, but it does get a little bit of movement. So for the legs, we get a pretty good spread there for Kenshin, and there goes the hand. I'm going to leave it there. He does kick up pretty well too, and he does kick back nicely as well. I like that. There is a thigh cut in there. And if you are wondering what Kenshin's legs look like underneath his hakama, there we go. He's wearing red tights. Kind of looks like a cyclist to me. Anyway, double knees, just to give you guys a better view of what that looks like. We have rotation there at the ankle. The feet go really well down. Pretty good going up. Again, toe hinge there. And some fantastic ankle articulation. So again, really the only thing that I wish Kenshin could have had, you know, better articulation with is the ab articulation. I mean, even the arms, they are a little bit fiddly, and I don't really like that kind of Revoltech-ish shoulder joint. You know, it's still, you can still get Kenshin in some pretty dynamic poses, you know. It's just that ab crunch, you know, when he's kind of crouching down, you know, trying to get Kenshin in those like batojutsu, like sword drawing poses. It just doesn't get enough range as I would have liked. Anyway, it's not bad, it's pretty good. The cloth goods don't get in the way. Overall, pretty decent articulation here. For accessories, Kenshin comes with a couple of hand options. You get your neutral relax hands that can also double up as relaxed grip hands for his sheath and sword, a pair of open palm in action hands, a set of sheath gripping hands, and a set of sword wielding hands for both left and right arms. We also get a pair of fists, although I don't think I've ever seen Kenshin punch someone in the anime before, but I'm sure he can hold his own even without a sword. I mean, he'd have to, right? Kenshin just wouldn't be Kenshin without his sakabato or reverse bladed sword, and we get the actual sword unsheathed, nicely painted in metallic silver and gunmetal, as well as a sheathed option with detachable hilt as well. The hilt has some nice painted details too, and though it's not the most intricate design ever, the sakabato is probably one of the most iconic weapons in manga. I think overall I'm pretty satisfied with my first BuzzMod experience, and whilst I wasn't exactly blown away, this figure did remind me of just how much I enjoy this anime/manga. I've started rewatching the original 1996 version whilst waiting for season 2 of the remake, which is okay at best. But like I said in the beginning of the review, it's the reason we have any Rurouni Kenshin figures in the first place. Figuarts already have 3 figures in their upcoming line, with Kenshin due to be released at the end of July. Yep, comparison review on its way. I'm not sure if BuzzMod will continue their run on Kenshin, but if they do, I think characters like Kaoru and Shishio would probably work in their favor. From the looks of things, I think BuzzMod will probably be my shelf displayers and Figuarts my pose around desk figures. Again, BuzzMod Kenshin is a beautiful looking figure, but I guess the balance of aesthetics and functionality just wasn't quite there yet. And I know it's a difficult feat. Traditional Japanese garments are notoriously difficult to replicate in plastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Figuarts have up their sleeves, but for now, I finally have a 6-inch Kenshin figure to enjoy whilst watching the anime. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. Likes and comments are always appreciated. Would really help out the channel if you subscribed, and I'll catch you all in the next one. July is going to be a packed month. We got more Kenshin, some Naruto, Q.E. is on its way. Oh, and some Mafex as well. Whew, so many figures, so many reviews. But alright, guys, I am out of here. Have a good one, and as always,
よろしく